We're 1 year on from the 7th of October 2023. 42,000 dead according to official estimates, half of them children, though according to the Lancet, it could be as many as 186,000. 90% of the people of Gaza displaced, the place a ruin, with the conflict and bloodshed spread to the West Bank, to Lebanon and even to Yemen. So my question is, after all of that, what have we learned? What have we learned about the people who are suffering? Well, the people of Gaza have been extraordinary. Their dignity in their suffering has won the hearts of people around the world, not just Muslims, but non-Muslims, Jews, Christians, people of no faith have seen that these people are resilient. These people are steadfast. These people have strong iman and faith, which is extraordinary to behold. They've won people's hearts. People stand by them with their prayers, with their tears, with their marching, with their charity. The people of Gaza have taught the world about an occupation they were previously ignorant about. They've taught them about the best and the worst of humanity. What have we learned about the Zionist occupier? Well, we've learned that they're weaker than ever anyone thought they were before. When you massacre a civilian population which is unarmed and has no help, you can't call that strength. You can't call that bravery. When you try and silence people by force or by legal means from speaking the truth, you can't call that strength. It's weakness. We've also learnt that they're much more cruel and sadistic than we ever knew they were before. This sadistic cat and mouse game they play where they tell people to move for their own safety and then bomb them in the safe havens. We've learnt that nothing is safe. Not a hospital, not a school, not a university, not a mosque, not a church, not a refugee agency, not a journalist. No one is safe from their cruelty. And what did we learn about the occupation itself? Well, we've learned that it always was and still is a colonial occupation. First, it was intended to be a colony for Britain, and now it's intended to be a colony for the United States, as former Secretary of State Alexander Haig called it, America's aircraft carrier in the Middle East. The West is still arming them. The West is still giving them political cover. For the West, they see it as their vital interest in the globe, more important than Ukraine, more important than Taiwan. They're willing to give cover to their terrorism, which has been ongoing for the last 70 plus years, since the days of the Haganah, the Irgun and the Lehi, till the days today of the occupying force. All because they know that if any of the vulnerable regimes in the region go, they've lost control of the region. What have we learnt about the backers of the occupation in the West? Well, we've learnt that all their rhetoric about human rights and international law, it's meaningless. When they tolerate genocide, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, torture, war crimes, it means that all this talk is meaningless. You have no moral ground to stand upon when you're trying to tell the rest of the world how to behave. What did we learn about international institutions like the UN? We learned they were only ever there to enforce the interests of the powerful states in the world. We learned that they were never meant to police those powerful states and their allies. They were only meant for the weak, for the brown people, or for most of the rest of the ordinary world. What have we learnt about the Arab and Muslim world regimes? We learnt that they are the real Zionist Defense Force. They are the ones who secure the interests of the Zionists. They've done nothing to stop the killing. They've allowed the supply lines to continue. They've maintained their normal relationships. They've maintained their diplomatic relationships. Some of them even try and prevent their own people from speaking out against the occupation. If they disappeared, then the occupation would disappear. Because people have learnt that actually it's not just Palestine that's occupied, but all the Muslim countries by colonial regimes that still exist. And what did we learn about the solution? We learnt that a state-level military occupation that is slaughtering a civilian population demands a state-level military intervention by armies from the Arab and Muslim world, the official armies of those countries, to rescue the people. We've learnt that that could have saved people, but for those regimes not willing to intervene. We've learnt that resistance is not the same as liberation, and occupation demands liberation. We've learned the truth of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّمَا الْإِمَامَ الْجُنَّةِ, that indeed the Imam is a shield, and only the Imam. The Imam meaning the righteous, the legitimate Muslim ruler. Because the absence of that ruler means that the many resources in the Muslim world have not been released and mobilized to help the people of Gaza, Palestine, Lebanon and beyond. We've learnt that only when we have the restoration of the Khilafah in the Muslim world and the unifying of the resources of the Muslims and a sincere leadership can we expect that the liberation of Palestine should happen, and the defense of the people, the rescuing of the mustad'afin, the weak, the oppressed, the Muslim children, the women, the men who have no one to defend them at the moment. What did we learn about ourselves? Did I do enough? Did I care enough? Am I one of those people that has wahan in my heart, that I care so much for this dunya that I'm not willing to give up my time, my energy, my effort to keep discussing this issue, to calling for the real solution, to working for it? Have I let despair take me over, or do I trust in the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring His victory? Do I realize that if all we ever do is just shout and make noise, or accept a change of face in government in the Muslim world, we aren't going to get a radical change, meaning a change where an Islamic system is there to unify the Muslims and unify our resources and deal with the many problems of occupation and misery and oppression in the Muslim world, most importantly, liberating the land of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. The question for me is, how much am I going to do now this matter has not ended? If I know what is the problem and I know what is the solution, shouldn't I be talking about it? Isn't the reality that Islam ruling over the region was the only time in history when Muslim, Jew and Christian could live side by side with peace and security and justice? Isn't that what I should be working for? So what have you and I learnt? Ask yourself this, because ultimately this matter has been a test for all of us. And if I haven't learnt anything in the last year, I haven't passed the test. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.